I know what you're thinking. That no mother should ever let something like this happen. That a woman should know where the line is, and never cross it. And you're right. But when you've been invisible for so long, when the silence in your home becomes louder than words, sometimes the line doesn't just blur, it disappears. I didn't plan to feel anything. But that night, my stepson looked at me in a way no one had in years. And I couldn't look away. If that makes me a monster, then maybe I always was. I never thought I'd say this out loud. Not to anyone. And especially not here, where anyone, everyone, could hear it. But I guess that's the point. You say things in the dark hoping someone out there understands, even if they never say it back. So here it is. I wasn't always like this. I used to be the kind of woman who judged other women for stories like this. I used to think I'd never be desperate enough, lonely enough, foolish enough. But life has a way of stripping away the parts of you that used to feel solid. Now, I don't even recognize the woman in the mirror. And honestly, that scares me more than what happened. I was supposed to stay for 2 weeks. Just until I could figure out my next move. A temporary pause after the divorce, until the lease on my new place cleared. But weeks turned into months. Money ran dry. Job interviews fell through. And suddenly, I wasn't just visiting the house where my ex-husband once lived. I was stuck in it. A guest in a home that didn't feel like mine. Sharing space with a boy who wasn't mine either. Aiden. My stepson. 20 years old. Quiet. Polite. Careful. I didn't notice him, not really, not at first. He kept to himself. And I kept trying to remember who I used to be. But the longer I stayed, the more the silence between us started to hum. And I don't know exactly when it changed. I just know that it did. And once it changed, I couldn't change it back. I used to have an office. A title. A coffee mug with my name on it. Now? I sleep on a couch that sinks too much in the middle. Every morning, my back aches. Every night, I tell myself it's temporary. My husband passed 3 years ago. Cancer. Quick. Cruel. The silence he left behind still echoes louder than anything else in this house. His son, Aiden, moved in a year after the funeral. He was quiet, respectful. I appreciated the help with rent. But we rarely spoke beyond small exchanges. I tried to rebuild my life. Applied to dozens of jobs. One HR manager actually told me, "You're too soft for this field now." Too soft? I wasn't soft when I watched my husband wither in a hospital bed. I started skipping meals to make groceries stretch. My mother called once, left a message, then didn't call back. I didn't blame her. There's only so much grief people want to hear. And Aiden. He never asked how I was really doing. But sometimes I'd hear him stop outside the living room at night. Like he wanted to say something. Then his footsteps would fade. We were two ghosts in the same house. Not speaking. Not touching. Just waiting. But waiting for what? I still don't know. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because it was raining, and the power had gone out for a few hours. The house felt darker than usual, like the walls were closing in. I was sitting in the kitchen, staring at a cup of tea I hadn't touched, when I heard him come in. Aiden usually went straight to his room. But that night, he stopped. He looked at me, really looked. And said, "You okay?" I almost laughed. No one had asked me that in weeks. Maybe longer. I shrugged, gave a non-answer. Just tired, I guess. He didn't push. Just nodded, pulled out the chair across from me, and sat down. For a while, we didn't speak. The only sound was the rain tapping against the windows. Then he said, "You shouldn't be sleeping on that couch." I blinked. "It's fine, just temporary. You've been here 3 months." I didn't know what to say. He wasn't being rude. He was just stating the truth. He looked down at his hands. "They took the guest bed when they moved out. But you can have mine. I don't sleep much anyway." I opened my mouth to refuse, but the words caught. It wasn't about the bed. It was the gesture. The acknowledgement. Aiden didn't have to say much. There was a weight behind his silence that felt familiar. Like he understood what it meant to feel displaced. When he finally stood to go, he paused. "If you need anything, I'm around." And then he disappeared back into his room. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. But it was the first time in months I'd felt seen. Not as someone's ex. Not as someone who failed. Just me. And somehow, that made all the difference. After that night, something shifted. Nothing obvious. No dramatic stares or lingering touches. Just small things. Aiden started coming home a little earlier. He'd pass by the kitchen, ask if I'd eaten. Sometimes he'd bring home takeout, too much for one person. He'd say, leaving the extra container on the table without looking at me. We never sat and shared a full meal. But we started existing in the same spaces. The living room, the hallway. Once, I reached for a glass at the same time he did. Our hands touched. Just for a second. But I felt it. There was a quiet between us that wasn't empty anymore. It was charged. Alive. I caught him looking at me once. Not in a disrespectful way, just curious. Like he was trying to read me, figure out what I was hiding behind my calm voice and tired eyes. I didn't dress differently. I didn't try to get his attention. But one night, wearing an old t-shirt, no makeup, hair tied back, he paused in the doorway and said, "You look nice tonight." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. "Thanks," I said, voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't a compliment that changed things. It was the fact that he noticed. That he spoke. And that, for the first time in a long time, I wanted to be noticed. It scared me. Not because of what he said, but because of how it made me feel. Because the space between us was getting smaller. And neither of us seemed in a hurry to stop it. The water heater broke that week. Pipes cracked. Cold water spilled across the floor, soaking the carpet outside the bathroom. The landlord couldn't come until Monday. So Aiden booked us a room, just one, for the weekend. "It's fine," he said. 2 beds, just somewhere to shower and sleep. I should have argued. Insisted I'd stay with a friend. But I didn't. That night, we sat at opposite ends of the motel room, TV humming low. He scrolled his phone. I pretended to read. But the silence wasn't quiet anymore. It buzzed. I felt his presence in the room like heat. Not overwhelming, just there. In the air, in my skin. It got late. I stood to get ready for bed. I didn't pack pajamas. Just a thin tank top and shorts. When I came out of the bathroom, I caught him watching. He looked away too quickly, like he'd been caught thinking something he shouldn't. I climbed into the other bed. Pulled the covers up. Turned off the light. Minutes passed. Then his voice broke the dark. "You okay?" It was the 3rd time he'd asked me that. But this time, It felt different. Yeah, I whispered. Just cold. I heard the rustle of sheets. Then, carefully, his voice again. You want me to hold you? My heart caught. My body said yes before my mind could answer. I nodded in the dark. He moved slowly. The bed dipped behind me. And when his arms wrapped around me, I didn't tense. I exhaled. No words. No promises. Just warmth in a place where I'd felt nothing for so long. And that's when I knew. The line wasn't behind us. It was right beneath us. And trembling. I told myself it was just comfort. Just warmth. Just one night of being held. But the longer we stayed like that, the more it changed. His breath was steady against the back of my neck. His hand, resting lightly on my waist, wasn't wandering, but it was aware. I could feel his heartbeat. And the way his body tensed every time I shifted. I should have pulled away. I knew what was happening. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned back. Just slightly. Enough that my body rested fully against his. His breath caught. He didn't move at first. Then, slowly, one of his fingers traced the curve of my arm. Soft, hesitant, asking for permission without a word. And I gave it. By not saying no. By not moving. His lips found my shoulder. Barely a touch. But it unraveled me. All the months of silence, of being invisible, of pretending I didn't miss being wanted. It all came crashing down in that one delicate kiss. I turned to face him. He hesitated. His eyes searched mine, like he was waiting for me to stop it. But I didn't. Our mouths met, gently at first. Like we both knew this was the moment we couldn't come back from. His hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me closer, deeper. There was no talking. No plans. Only breath, skin, and that overwhelming ache of finally being seen, being touched, being needed. And when it was over, we didn't speak. We just lay there in the dark, listening to each other breathe. And I realized. I didn't regret it. Not yet. Not then. Because for the first time in months, I felt alive again. I woke up before him. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the soft gray light was already filtering through the blinds. For a few seconds, I didn't move. His arm was still draped across my waist, our bodies tangled in sleep. And for that small, suspended moment, it felt okay. Almost normal. Then the weight of what we'd done hit me like a wave. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just heavy. I carefully slipped out from under his arm, trying not to wake him. Grabbed my clothes from the floor. Tiptoed into the bathroom. I didn't cry. Not then. But I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the face looking back. Hair messy. Lips swollen. Eyes too tired to lie. It wasn't regret. Not exactly. It was something messier. Like guilt and want were fighting for space in my chest. When I came out, Aiden was awake. Sitting on the edge of the bed, shirtless, head in his hands. Neither of us said anything for a while. Morning, he finally mumbled. Morning, I echoed. I waited for him to speak again. To ask what this meant. To tell me it was a mistake. But he didn't. Instead, he stood, grabbed his keys from the nightstand, and said, I'll go grab us some coffee. And just like that, the night disappeared behind a thin veil of normal. While he was gone, I sat on the bed and tried to piece myself back together. Tried to make sense of how something so quiet, could be so loud inside me. He returned 20 minutes later. Handed me a coffee. No eye contact. Just a simple, "Here." We drank in silence. Pretending we hadn't crossed a line. Pretending we could unfeel what we both knew had already changed everything. The days after felt like walking across cracked glass. One wrong word and everything would shatter. We barely spoke. And when we did, it was clipped and quiet. But our silences weren't empty, they were full of things we weren't brave enough to say. One night, I stayed up late folding laundry. He passed by on the way to the kitchen, paused at the doorway. We locked eyes. He almost smiled. Then looked away. "You don't have to pretend," I said, not even knowing why I said it. He stopped. Turned halfway toward me. "Pretend what?" "That it didn't mean anything." He stepped closer, just one step. "You want it to mean something?" His voice was low, but steady. My throat tightened. I looked down at the towels in my hands. "I don't know what I want," I whispered. He was standing right in front of me now. I could feel the warmth of him. He reached out, fingers grazing mine as I held the fabric. I didn't pull away. But he did. Without a word, he turned and walked back to his room. And I sat there, laundry forgotten, breath shaky. He could have kissed me. I might have let him. And maybe, I wanted him to. But he didn't. And that, somehow, hurt even more. Because the line wasn't just between us anymore. It was inside me. And I didn't know which side I wanted to be on. It was late past midnight when I heard his door open. I was lying on the couch, eyes closed, pretending to sleep. But I felt him. The way the air shifted when he entered the room. The soft creak of the floor beneath his steps. He didn't say anything. Didn't ask this time. Just sat on the edge of the couch, his hands resting on his knees, silent. I opened my eyes. Our eyes met. Something broke in me. Maybe it was the waiting. Maybe it was the ache of pretending. Or maybe I just wanted to feel something real again. He leaned in first. Slow, careful. Like he was waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. Our lips touched, soft, searching. And suddenly, the room felt too small for everything we were holding back. This time, it wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about loneliness. It was want. And it was mutual. His hands found my face. Mine found the space between his shoulders. No words. Just breath and skin. And that deep, aching need to be known, completely. We moved together like a secret we'd already told. There was no fear. No shame. Only the quiet truth we both had been carrying since that motel room. When it was over, we didn't pull away. We stayed there, tangled, silent, breathing in what we both already knew. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a decision. And we'd made it together. People ask if I regret it. If I'd go back and undo that night. Undo the second time. Undo every touch, every look, every breath we shared in secret. But how do you regret the one thing that reminded you you're still alive? It wasn't about lust. It wasn't even about love. It was about being seen. Being wanted. Being held like I mattered again. We still haven't talked about it. We don't need to. It's in the way he watches me stir my coffee. In the way I pause when I pass his door at night. He could have walked away. I could have stopped him. But neither of us did. And now we live in that space between guilt and craving. Knowing what we did. And knowing we might do it again. So, do I regret it? No. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because when you've spent years feeling invisible, even a forbidden touch can feel like grace. And maybe the real question isn't, was it wrong? Maybe it's this. If you were me, alone, grieving, desperate for connection, would you have stopped him?